Hello friends, welcome to C Sharp Intermediate to Advanced tutorial. Now we are at the final part of the subseries C Sharp Delegate and Events. In the last video, we talked about raising the event. We created a class called mathEx and exposed a function, and using that function we make a call to our event, or we can simply say we raised the event. The event data are actually the number supplied by the user. In real world, the data will be maintained by the class itself, or it takes the data from some other API. Alright, now these are all the slide decks from previous parts. In the last video, we talked about the event producer, and we saw, or we created a class called mathEx. Then we created two numbers as member. Then we created a constructor and mathapp function. This mathapp function will raise the event math action handler. Now let's look at the consumer part, and in the producer part we know that the event is raised when user makes a calls to do math app. Alright, now here is the form. We know our form contains two number. So in the form behind code, we create, or first we declare mathEx, and we state that as null. Here we are declaring and initializing it as null. Then in the load part of the form, we create new instance of mathEx, and we supply the content of the text. So during the load part, the number may not be valid. So number 1, number 2, we are supplying it, and we are doing that during the form load. So for this reason only, where we supply number in the design time itself, so that these two will not go empty. So during the form load itself, we have a valid number. Next, when add button check changed, we know that our form contains 3 checkboxes, right? Add, subtract, and multiply. So when add checkbox is checked, and if you see here, math is the class instance we already created, dot, this is actually the exposed event handler, math action event handler plus equal to. That means here we are hooking the event handler with a handler function. Alright, so here if you see, we are using the new keyword mathEx. This is not our instance name. We are providing the type name itself, mathEx dot do math action. So do math action is the delegate. So since it's a public member, we are telling do math action. So here actually we are constructing the delegate type. This is actually the event name, delegate type, and this is the fx or function name, or we can tell this as handler name. Right here we are providing the handler name, and do math action. Since we create an instance of delegate type and give our function, the delegate will expect that this function fx should return void, and it should take 2 integer as a parameter. So name can be anything. Here the name of the function is add numbers, but you can provide any function name, but that function will act as a handler. So when the class domain mathEx raises the event math action handler, it will invoke and add numbers. So event raised, event handled on a add numbers function. All right, so here this part tells hooking the event. Hooking the event means providing a handler to this event. In the else portion, when the checkbox is not in checked state, or if user removes the check mark, if you see this is plus equal to, this one is minus equal to, and we are unhooking the event handler. Syntax is same. Here we are removing the handler. So once the handler is removed, and when event is raised, it won't reach the handler. Why? Because the handler is unhooked from this event. All right, then next piece of code are same for other event, and here you can see the handler and add numbers. So when event is raised, the handler will get called, and we get 2 integer as parameter, and this is supplied by the mathEx. But actually here we are constructing the mathEx and we are supplying the number. As already told, in real world sometimes this data may be maintained by the class itself. It takes these 2 members from some other means, from some other application like a card reader ex, or like a database read or file read operation, or through some web service, whatever it is. So the data is received by some other means, and registered consumer will receive those data when the event is raised, and those data are received based on the handler's parameter. All right, here if you see, here we receive the event data n1 and n2, and add numbers is the handler for math action handler event. Once we receive n1 n2, we are simply adding these 2 numbers n1 plus n2, then we are appending that to the string. This is our result. Then we have txt result. In this example we have result, right? I mean the text box, right? In the text box we are appending the text result environment.newline. That means here we get added result. If it is 12, then we will be getting 12 plus 12, 24. All right. And the same way, if one or more events are hooked, all these events are called by the by this invoke method. So for example, on add number, that's one handler, right? Let's say user placed a tick mark on all 3. Then there will be a similar code like this for all the checkbox checked event, and if all are checked, then we will be using the plus equal to, and we are providing an add numbers and subtract numbers on multiply number, and there will be 3 event handler tied to the same event. Right, when invoke is called or when an event is raised, it checks what are all the event hooked to this handler, and it calls all the event, and add numbers and subtract numbers and on multiply numbers. When it is calling those event handlers, it will supply the data. That means it will supply 2 integers. Alright, now it is demo time. We will go to the demo and finish this example. Okay, now we will go to the form code. Here at form level, so we have math.ex. So this is math.ex. We are creating the instance of math.ex, and okay, here we are just declaring it and we are initializing it as null. Then in the form load, we are creating the instance of math.ex, and if you look at the design time, we have a value of 0, 0. So let's define some value, 12, 10. 12 and 10, that's what we defined here. Next, we handle the event for each checkboxes. Checked, changed. Checked, changed, and for third one also we will handle same event. As already explained in the slide, here we are hooking and unhooking the event. So the same technique you can see here on the initialized component code as well. See here, checked, changed. Just now we handled it, right? System.event handler, this is hooking the event. The exposed event is checked, changed, and handler is chk add checked, changed. chk add checked, changed. Right, the same way here, this is our own event and we are hooking it. Next, we need to provide a handler. This is an add number handler, right? Here we have an add number handler, and we are hooking this handler to the event math action listener. I mean math action handler. So the same way we have to handle the other checkboxes as well. So checked, changed for subtract, and this time we provide a different handler method. And if you see, our math action handler expects a handler function that should return void and take 2 integer as parameter. We already defined an add numbers that returns void and takes 2 integer as parameter. Now we have to write 2 more methods, and subtract and on multiply. So here is our handler method, and subtract and on multiply. The only difference is how user handles the event. So here in on subtract, the user is using the data number 1 and number 2, and they are handling it differently. That means they are performing the subtract operation. Here it is the multiply operation. Just like how we handle a click event of certain button, right? Different user can provide a different way of implementing it. Alright, anyhow, this is just an example. Here we provided 3 handler, and we are hooking these handler to the same event. So when more than one handler is provided, we call that as a chaining, event chaining. Now we have to make a call to do math app. So that means we need to handle this cyclic event. All right, here if you see, we are parsing the number 1 and number 2. We are assigning that to the math class. After that, we are making call to do math app. And here, the moment you click do, or the moment you click this button, we read the content of the text boxes and we change the internal member number 1 and number 2. Then we are making call to do math app, and we know what to do math app will do. It will invoke this handler. So based on that, it will supply the data. So this is the part I am talking about. Here the data is going to math class from the consumer itself. But in real world, the math class will have this data by means of some other action. That means by reading the file, or it got the data based on the third-party vendor's implementation. All right, now we will test this. Here if you see, when we place a check mark, event will be hooked. That means handler method on add and subtract on multiply will get hooked. If we remove the check mark, the handler will get unhooked. Right now, at this moment, there is no handler that is hooked to the event. So if I click do math, nothing happens. Why? Because here we are checking this dot math handler not equal to null, but the math handler is null. Why? Because nothing is hooked so far. Now we are just hooking the add method, do math, and you see added result is 22. Multiply, two handler functions are hooked to the same event. When I click do math, it will call both the method add and multiply. Subtract, all three handler get called. Now you see only 2 get called. So that's all here in this example. This will help you understand how to expose an event and how to consume an event.